The supply curve. Cleaning toilets is a very important job. Somebody's got to do it. So imagine you were offered some extra work cleaning toilets. How much would you be willing to supply your labour for? So wages are the reward that you get for supplying your labour. Would you do it for £2, $2, €2 an hour? Possibly not. Would you do it for £100, €100, $100 an hour? Possibly yes. And here we have the concept of an upward sloping supply curve. At low prices, less is supplied. But as the price rises, suppliers are more willing and able to supply whatever their product or service is. So if the price of labour for cleaning toilets is very, very low, not many people are willing to supply it. But as the price of labour rises, more people are willing to supply their labour. And even you may be willing to clean toilets for £100 an hour. So if I give you another example, if you imagine you've got plum trees in your garden, or apple trees in your garden, whatever it may be, and you're thinking about maybe putting these apples into some bags, leaving them by the roadside and selling them for maybe a little bit of cash. Let's say you're willing to offer them at 10p a kilo, which would be very, very cheap. You could pick up a kilo of apples very, very quickly, put them in a bag, put them by the roadside, maybe someone will give you 10p for them. Maybe you think it's not worth the money, but let's say that you are willing to do that. So at a low price, at say 10p a kilo, you would possibly sell a certain number of kilos. Or, actually I'll correct myself there, you'd be willing to supply a certain number of kilos. We're not quite sure whether you'd sell them or not because we don't know what the demand for them is. But let's say you're willing to supply them at that price. Now, can you be bothered to actually make the effort of pull the apples or plums off the tree? Possibly not at 10p a kilo, but perhaps at 20 or 30p a kilo you're more willing to spend a bit of time actually taking stuff off the trees. So as the price goes up, you're possibly willing to supply more. And there we have it moving slightly up the supply curve. Now the next question is, how willing would you be to supply, say, 100 kilos of apples or plums? That's going to take a bit more effort. You're going to have to give up some of your time doing other things. You're possibly going to have to invest in a ladder or maybe some kind of contraption that can get apples and plums off the top part of the tree. You possibly have to pay somebody, maybe pay somebody overtime to be able to supply that number of apples. So the only way that you would be willing to supply that extra would be if you could get a higher reward for it. And so as the price, if the price was up there, you would possibly be willing to supply many, many more apples and plums. And this is key to the supply curve. When prices are relatively low, not that much of a quantity will be supplied, but as the price begins to rise, more will be supplied. And if you think of apples, plums and cleaning toilets, you won't go far wrong.